Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk Friday morning. Me and my amazing friends and fellow mediums and channelers and spirit connectors, Ginette and Elyse, we meet every Friday here on YouTube, Spirit Coffee Talk, to talk all things spirit, but also what's transpiring in the cosmos energetically, what's gone down this week, solar flares, full moons, spirit guides, dreams, timelines, all that kind of stuff. You can literally find all of it here. So this week we are kind of just playing off of a little bit last week's theme of timeline jumping and connecting in to the timeline or the current timeline, energetically aligning our frequency and what that looks like. So last week we kind of, if you haven't seen it, really go back and watch it, because we talk about like actual experiences of what it feels like to timeline jump. And we break that down into the best human way of explaining that and what that looks like. But obviously it is a complex phenomenon that goes deep into the heart of quantum reality and physics, and which is so fun. I can nerd out on that all day. But anyway, this week we're kind of looking further into that on now, how are you feeling and how does it affect your life on a day-to-day basis when we are not necessarily just timeline jumping, but like moving, I want to say up, but it doesn't really work like that. But like when we are kind of moving into a higher frequency, if you must, like what that looks like, that could be like traditionally called as spiritual awakening. If we're starting to have these really like connections with the veil being really thin and having these connections kind of to this fifth dimensional reality, moving up in our spiritual awareness, which if you're watching this and a part of this community, chances are you have in one way or the other, right? So we're here talking today about what it looks like moving into a higher frequency, what it looks like personally, what it looks like in your life, what your exterior surroundings can reflect back at you after you've experienced a timeline jump or even just a spiritual awakening of sort, when we're moving up in our consciousness and our frequency, and how it can often feel terrifying. It isn't. Actually, I was saying to a beautiful soul the other day, very rarely actually is when you move through that threshold, does it feel like sunshine and rainbows? It's actually like, I'm like a butterfly, like struggling to get out of the chrysalis. It's like, it can feel like, like a lot. And we can experience massive ascension symptoms and like big kind of, not obstacles, I'd say, but like confrontation of sort between us and loved ones or situations or past perceptions or beliefs that we've had. And when we're going through this threshold, when we're upgrading and when we are connecting into this frequency, it can come with fear or isolation a little bit, feeling like you're the only one and you're an alien in your own home, where all of a sudden situations and places change because you've changed. And it's like, but I really liked that. I liked my life simple, And when you've been pulled into the light, it's really impossible. Like you can sit in the dark a bit, but it's kind of impossible to just pretend like you just haven't experienced it, right? So we're here today to talk to you about how you're not alone, and we all have gone through it and continue to go through it, and that it's a very real thing that we're here to experience as humans. As actually part of the human experience is to experience this. So just know that you're not alone, and this experience can be big, but we're here to do it with you. So that was a massive introduction. So welcome.
All good. So quick imagery that I just really wanted to share in this is sometimes with timeline jumping. So my previous thought on timeline jumping was that when you jump a timeline or switch into a new one, it's like that, right? Like it's boom, new timeline. But what I've learned is that it can happen several ways. Sometimes it can be that fast. It can be that you wake up and everything feels slightly different and you notice slight differences in, your partner, in your daily life, even maybe how you look in the mirror or something a little bit different. But it can also happen over an extended period of time where there's like a merging of two. So you start to feel the beginnings of it and then the overlap, and then it merges completely. So in that case, it could happen over a span of, I don't know, a couple days, couple weeks, maybe longer too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes it's valuable to consider that also, because you may be noticing tiny little things in your life or big, massive things, but all of those pertain to timeline jumps. And then the second part of that, really quickly, is you can also be experiencing a collective timeline jump where the greater collective is shifting, or an individual personal timeline jump.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also be simultaneous. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a linear, like black and white, this
Oh, for
side,
sure.
that side. It can be many. And so I really want to share that because it's about what it's like for you, what your experience is, and to take everything we're going to share today and see maybe what's happening in yours.
Mhm.
I like that
And
overlap.
I'll even say it's also different pieces of your experience, right? So it's not like, oh, health and wealth and where I live and relationships and everything is like jumbled into one timeline. It's like you could be experiencing a couple different pieces, or maybe one aspect of life has shifted into one timeline and another aspect has shifted into the other. And then we're kind of like, back and forth a little bit, or a piece of life is taking a little bit longer to click into that. So it's not even just like it's all the different pieces, which makes it so infinite and I think confusing for our brains,
Totally.
because you look around and you're
Because
like, what the F is going on?
there's specifics like that, but then you can also talk about like yourself on like your soul's journey, and when you've
Mhm.
done some upgrading on like your soul's journey of learning and expansion, and then all of a sudden you feel things differently, or your actual physical body interprets things differently in sensitivity, or like, based on your soul's frequency in you, like within your reality. And so it's more of that individual experiencing versus the surroundings, right? And like where that is. And so there's so many multifaceted aspects of what we're talking about. But really, like, I think if we can like focus in, it's more like, okay, so now, so like you're in the middle of experiencing like a physiological and spiritual kind of energetic, let's say, frequency upgrade. Now what to do now, how that looks, what
Mhm.
you can go through, and how that is experienced, kind of thing. I think that that's kind of nice, because I think it's clear across the board, kind of how I was saying, for people collectively experiencing this, have mentioned how it can be very isolating, because what once was is kind of no longer, in a sense. And so it's like, now what?
Mhm.
I see it. I've been seeing it over and over and over with people, myself,
Mhm.
all of it. So how would you help to explain and help to encourage and nurture individuals that are experiencing these changes right now, that can be accompanied by fear and that kind of stuff, to get into a place of like um, knowing and peace within it? Any like helpful tips?
Elyse, this
One
is
of the
totally your bag.
well, one of the things
So you.
one of the things that was even, we can talk about like the somatic work and the body stuff, and all day I could talk about that forever. One of the things that was actually coming up though, um, as we were talking about this before we started recording, was Spirit was saying, this is like, there's so many reasons why we have spiritual practices or meditative practices or soul work practices or embodiment, somatic, whatever. Like, it's again so multifaceted and why. But one of the reasons why working on mindfulness or being present is so important, because Lisa, you were talking before we started recording about how like we have to stop and look around, and and if we're constantly in our brains, and this is again where that body somatic piece comes in, because I think we can live a lot more presently when we're not constantly in our brain. And we talked a whole bunch about that last week, so go watch that if you
Yeah,
haven't.
but it is a constant thing coming up, isn't it?
Totally.
Telling
Yeah.
people to get out of their brain, get out of your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like that, working through those things with whether it's meditation or movement or somatic work or dancing, or like it literally could be any sort of kind of mindful practice, but where you're bringing yourself into the present moment so that you can pause to look around. And what I really love about the kind of pausing to look around and like noticing what's happening in your current experience, not from this place of like, oh, what's happening, but like, what is happening right now, and knowing that you're safe. And it's this idea of as above so below. There's a practice in somatic work called orienting that's so good for your nervous system, because as we pause and we just slowly look around our space, we're taking in information saying you're safe right now, everything's okay. And that is a somatic like nervous system practice, but it's also what they're saying in relation to this work is like pausing, noticing that in this moment you're safe, dropping into your body, dropping into the present moment. There's not a bear that's going to eat me. I don't need to be having this intense stress response.
Yeah.
And then you can take survey of like what's actually happening. Because I think when we can start to notice, not from a place of panic, what are the changes, right? We can be like, oh, that's interesting. It create it. I feel like it can shift it from what the actual F is happening. And this is stressing me out. And oh my gosh, I'm going to fill in the blank of all these potential things that could come from this and change and to, okay, that experience wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
What is it? And we can inquiry into it versus like panic mode into it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You know what I think is cool too with that statement is Spirit has been asking us, and we've been talking about it repeatedly since this year started, of what do you want, right? Like we've talked that like into the floor. Okay. But this, I think, is what we can really pull from in these moments of feeling this panic because we're seeing change, is to remember that you've been asked repeatedly what you want. And so you have most likely been responding repeatedly with what you want. And because of that, it's kind of like to find that piece of trust to hold on to, that what you're stepping into is aligned with what you want.
Yes.
You may not control the exact pathway to it,
Yes.
but it's aligned with what you want. Because if you've done your work, and the fact that you are watching this show right now most likely means that you have been and are doing, that means you've made space for the universe to bring in what it is you want.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we can shift our perspective from 3D perspective of fear to 5D perspective of, listen, I have helped to manifest this. The universe is helping to bring this in now. I can calm my energy, notice my surroundings, and notice the things that are changing, and then become curious about them. Kind of like, ooh, I notice that's different. Show me more. What can I learn about it? What can I learn about myself now in this change? Do I like this? Do I want to refine what I want? Because we get to continually refine what we want. And I think that's something, yeah, we've learned, is we continually get to refine because we're continually creating in every moment. So we can fine tune and adjust it, which is great. So I like that.
I like that too. I like that. Ginette, just to take this one, like just to kind of like integrate this one step then to kind of like tie in, is when you're talking and you're talking about like, what do you want? And when we were talking about getting out of your head and into your body and embodiment and how that can make the process a bit easier. An example, tangible example of this is when you're talking about like things that show up around you as a manifestation of what you're creating. And, you know, what if we then started the practice of embodiment with these types of decisions? So saying, what do you want? Instead of really trying to think it through, let's go into our body and see how we can be responding and take cues from that. So an example would be like, if one of our intentions, let's say in our highest frequency, is to align ourselves in our body with the nutrients that's going to fuel us in our high frequency. Okay. That's our intention. What we would maybe naturally do is go into our head and everything we've learned about food and nutrients, what's good, what's not good, right?
Mhm.
Food guide, sugar, carbs, that kind of stuff. Or we can go and make it a very embodied experience by when we go grocery shopping, go through the produce and go through the fresh foods or whatever, and actually pick up a food or like smell and be a part of the food system and see how your body responds.
Mhm.
Because it's a really good practice to go in and be like, like even like in your mind's eye, experience the food. So if I'm looking to make something and I'm holding like, or I'm around celery and I could embody that and like feel the texture or the taste and like what this, whether it's soups or fresh, and I can learn what my body's response is to that and trust versus I don't want this because it has too much sugar and sometimes it's a hard
Mhm.
no. Like I wanted to love kale because of my head thinking it was so good for you, and my body's instant response is like texture. It's almost like and when I eat it, like massive reaction. I just don't do well with kale.
Mhm.
Violently ill. But if I go back to trying to find the kale to bring it home to cook it or use it in my smoothies or whatever, I know it isn't a full body yes. It was my head saying, that's
Mhm.
good for you. Right.
Mhm.
And so I think practicing these types of things so that we can actually connect tangible experiences with what it feels like to align ourselves with the frequency in which we're in. So if we are pulling ourselves into the highest frequency that we want to be able to manifest and be around like whatever the why is, right? How does our surroundings look, right? Generally it's like we don't have a ton of fear, or we have the abundance, or we have the health, and we have the connections, and we have the freedom, and whatever it is that's driving it in our highest frequency. Well, if we can start making these little things on a daily basis to get out of here and into here within our alignment in this frequency, I think it makes it a lot more like doable rather than a thing we seek, this thing those spiritual ladies talk about. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like, no, we have to constantly look around and say like, is this is reflecting back to me in this is not the frequency in which I want to reside in. Instead of changing this, I'm going to go back into the frequency, the feeling, the why, that where I want to be, and trust with that I'm going to attract the same type of frequencies within that timeline, right?
Mhm.
And so these are tangible little things where we get out of our head because we're not going to think our way into anything. We are going to embody it. We're going to be intuitively guided within the frequency in which we reside.
Mhm. I think so. And I think we can, like you're saying, like we can apply that to all things. And even having, like when you do recognize that moment that does feel aligned or changed or different, you're like, yes, this is what I've been wanting. This, like right here. Instead of just kind of being like, okay, good, moving on. When we sit in that moment for a bit of like, wow, I have been asking for this. It might be a little thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a pair of shoes that you finally got that you didn't think existed. I have no idea. But
Yeah,
if you take those shoes and you have absolute gratitude, you're kind of echoing that check mark of like, yes, universe, this is what I'm wanting. These things, this feeling, this experience. And like it draws more of those things to you. And
definitely acknowledgement.
yeah. And when you feel that or embody that, or you're in that moment, your body essentially amplifies that frequency outward,
Yes.
right? So it does a
Yes.
lot of things. It allows you to tune into your body as the interface, listen to your body, but then also use your body as the beacon for more of what you want. So it's like a
Yes.
really powerful time right now because Elyse, you sent me a video recently of, or maybe that was just today. Again, I don't know what day is what day. But anyways, you sent me a video of someone who was talking about a recent timeline shift. And with the Schumann resonance reacting the way it has, like it echoes a lot of shift times. And I have to agree. I think there has been a significant timeline shift happening in like the last week or so. For maybe a couple of people, it's a little bit longer, and maybe for some, it's just today. But we've been in this phase of this new timeline shift that I feel very much has been collective, but has also had millions of fingers that are individualized too. So it's like not just this block that came down, but like almost like a brush that has all the little like fingers on it, that's come down. And so it's activated so many people's individual timeline shifts as well in the last several days. So
Yeah.
I think for many people, there may be this resonance of like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me, or I thought I was going crazy, or I thought I was forgetting things, but oh my gosh, me too. This must be a timeline too, because that video, when you sent it, Elyse, I already had a knowing, and we'd already talked about timeline stuff, like we've been talking about it. But to have this external validation completely unrelated to us three was like, yes, it is. It literally is. This literally is happening. And so I think this is a very exciting time, because this is what Spirit has been talking about, and how we front end loaded the beginning of this year with lots of change, transformation, karma, cycles, endings, beginnings. And now June, they kept saying, would be the ushering in of the visual, tangible manifestations starting to show themselves. The goodness coming back, the reciprocation of the work that we put in. We're literally in that. So
Yes.
if so many people are noticing that, the more that we receive in those moments of gratitude with the food or with the shoes or whatever it is, the more we are going to be a brighter beacon to bring in more of those alignments of what we want in
Yes.
this timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa, you were saying something at the beginning, kind of on that same tangent, because when we're calling these things in, it's like we're wanting something, right? We're asking for something. We're asking for what we want. And so then it's like these good things come in and we can have this gratitude for it. But Lisa, you were mentioning at the beginning, like, but I don't want this aspect to change, but I don't like this,
Yeah.
this fear that comes up. And it's so fair, because I think our brains are just so primed to have certainty and safety, and like, even it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't, right? Like, maybe I don't like this experience, but like, well, I don't know what it's like out there. So
Yeah.
like, what if it's worse? And
Yeah.
that's, just our brain and our nervous system being like, yo, keep yourself safe. This is scary. Things, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah. Ego.
But there's this interesting, and I've heard athletes speak about it. And there's a really cool video. It's a TED Talk, and it's called How to Make Stress Your Friend. And it's this researcher, and she talks about how Kelly McGonigal, she's a really great book about like exercise and stress and all this stuff. But she talks in this video specifically about how like stress has been really demonized as this negative thing, and and we have to remember that the reality is our stress response is a primal thing. It was one of the first things that developed, was the freeze response, as we evolved, and as like life evolved. And so where stress becomes a problem is when we resist it, when we don't let the stress cycle complete itself. A lot of us are in chronic stress, right? We just like input for a bunch of different reasons. We're in chronic stress for many people. But what in that chronic stress state, or even just from like a cultural perspective, when we feel that feeling of the heart fluttering and the like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous. Oh my gosh, what if this person leaves my life? What if this happens? And we start to get 11. We start to get this like, this panicky feeling that happens internally. And we're like, something's wrong. I'm anxious. I'm scared. I'm whatever. Part of harnessing, it's a stress response. And part of harnessing our stress response is telling ourselves, this is helping me, right? Our stress response is here to help us for some reason. It is not just a fun thing that, we just stay in stress. It's here to help us. And what a lot of professional athletes talk about is when they feel the butterflies, when they feel the nervousness, changing your perspective on it to, this is helping me rise to an occasion. This is helping me rise to do something, to move forward through something, to address something, whether it's a perceived real fear or not. But on that same line is, if you were to ask yourself, what does it feel like in my body to feel excited? Usually we're going to say butterflies, kind of a like antsy feeling, oh my gosh, this thing is coming. It's that excitement. It's not that much different than how we feel
When we're
fear or
nervous.
panic or worry. And so from a physical perspective, like human meat suit perspective, but also from a soul perspective, can we look at, oh, I'm nervous about this change. I'm nervous about this person leaving as, okay, my body is just feeling some lack of safety and it's trying to work itself out and it's helping me to rise to this occasion of change. From a soul perspective, can I look at it as, I feel this real intense, like nervous energy, but what if it's actually that my soul is really excited about something? What if on the flip side of that coin, it's actually like, oh, the good things are coming, the excitement's coming. Do we might maybe have to clear some things out? Does life have to rearrange itself a little bit from a physical perspective to make space for that? Maybe. But can we support ourselves through that and then realize like on the other side of that is actually excitement and like being called towards something?
Elyse, have you ever seen the study of the brain actually being monitored during excitement and like nervousness?
I don't think so.
It lights up exactly the same.
Oh, interesting.
So when like coaches or like my daughter was with a fantastic piano teacher when she was younger, and she said just exactly that, Elyse. She said in the brain, the exact same part that sends all the information to your body when you're nervous is the exact same thing when you're excited. So you feel the same thing. So when all of a sudden your heart starts pumping and you feel real nervous, you can literally just say, wow, am I ever excited about this? I'm so excited about this. And nothing has to change.
Yeah, I love that.
Honestly.
Yeah. It's such a simple
and then
thing.
And then you can validate it with words. Like I saw this fantastic TikTok. He was like, instead of I have to or I should, it's like I get to and I'm able to, right? I get to go grocery shopping today. You know, I'm able to tidy up this beautiful house. I'm able to do that. I can climb the stairs. I can do all that. I'm able to pick up my children from school. I am fully able to pay this bill that came in. I am so grateful that I can literally go into my phone, click the buttons, transfer, and pay this bill right here. Like the difference is uncanny with the feedback in your system. Not crazy. There's so much science behind the physiological and the nervous system and all the responses when we start just changing the words, because then
100%.
the different parts of your brain tell your body different things. And therefore, what happens? Different things show up in front of you because you have different alignment, because you're working on a different frequency.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I found myself on the TikTok of like manifestation is not, and I love this because I always talk about it, but like manifestation is not woo-woo. It is rooted in quantum physics and science. Like it's not this like fairy thing.
It's literally measurable energy.
Yeah, I agree.
And if anybody is curious about that, just nerd out on it a little bit. Put in that little search button, you know, the physics of manifestation.
Yeah.
Quantum physics.
Dr. Joe Dispenza does a lot of really cool visual things that you can look in and start to understand it in a way that I always bring those out for people who, I wouldn't say that they're resisting what I'm saying, but they're more curious about like, what do you mean it's all energy? Like, what do you mean it's an energetic alignment? Like, what does that even mean? Like, wow, let me tell you what it means. I've really gotten into the quantum field lately, but this is all tied into it.
Oh, completely is. Completely is. I have to interject here with the coolest thing ever, and this has never happened to me before.
Okay. I was wondering what you were doing over there. I was watching you. I'm like, what is she doing?
This is good.
So, Spirit just came in with a booming voice when we were talking, and I was writing a note when you were talking, Elyse, and then I was like, "Hey, I want to mention something about that." That's completely gone because they were like, "No, pull your cards." Just like, "Okay, I will." they're like, pull your cards now. So I'm like, all right. So I just grabbed the deck right beside me, which is my tarot deck. I start shuffling and shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And then I had a series of cards come out that I have never had like this in my life. And there's deep symbolism all throughout. And what I was asking when I was shuffling is, can you share validity or something to what's going on with this timeline shift, or that we are in a new timeline? This is significant and like something. So first card out is the Three of Cups, which always reminds us of us three. So like this is us right now in this conversation. And there's a Big Dipper on it, which is
That's
really
my favorite card. It always comes out with us.
I pulled that this morning.
I pulled that yesterday. It fell out like 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay. So
noted.
Very cool. Noted. Okay. This moment right now, what's happening. Okay. Then I pulled, this was all one after another. So it wasn't like different shuffles and then pull a card. It was like keep pulling, keep grabbing the next one. 10 major arcanas in a row.
No.
So let's just talk about the 10, for example. So symbolically, 10 is full completion. You've gone through the journey from 1 to 10. So within this, there is a complete journey of self, of collective, complete changeover. Now, secondly, the major arcanas versus the minor arcanas, majors represent like big things, universal shifts, big higher realm things. So I love that universally or collectively right now, we are going through a massive journey, which is then showing itself in the minor arcana of us in our timeline.
Yes.
So here are some themes that we have. So we were talking about feeling isolated in the shifts, going inward with the Hermit card, right? Like having these moments of feeling like things are different. You're sitting slightly above the path of 3D in a new timeline, observing it, all of that.
Love
we
that.
have the Empress energy, which is really diving into your divine feminine, which we've all been doing, connecting with the softer side of self, the creator nature of self, working with the universe. We have the High Priestess, which is tuning into the spiritual nature of self, that higher knowing, the goddess self, the higher self, the weaver of all things. We're tuning into that. We also have the Universe with the Star card, helping to bring this forward with our destiny. Like our destiny is literally, oops, middle finger, literally coming down. Yeah, sorry about that. You literally have a tether to your destiny, which is being brought down into our physical reality right now. And what is this bringing? It's bringing completions, things coming full circle, moving from one cycle into the next cycle. So the old timeline is completed, which then brings death and rebirth, transformation, we're coming out anew. Then we also have the pairing of the Emperor. So the Emperor is the one that takes action. And we keep saying we're in this moment now of action, of movement forward, of like, this is the June energy of like, you've done all your work, you know, you've like made the baby, now the baby's coming with action. And then we also have the pairing of the divine feminine and the divine masculine within ourselves and outside of ourselves, the masculine and the feminine principle. I'm not done yet. Then the next card out was the
But wait, there's
card.
more.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. The
The
star.
sun card.
Oh, the sun.
So the sun card, which is like so symbolic right now. First of all, this month we have the summer solstice, which is the massive amplification of sun. The sun has been playing a huge role in our consciousness with solar flares. And the sun card is literally the happiest card in the deck that says, read all of these cards in a positive. Okay, 2 more. Then we have the magician card, which pairs so beautifully with the high priestess, which is literally when we tap into our goddess self, our higher nature, and we merge with the universe can come in and spin in our favor, which is what's happening with that star card.
And with the magician, it's like you can make anything happen. Use
Anything.
this energy and literally make anything happen.
And then the final card, which couldn't be in a better position, is the Fool card, which absolutely represents new
Starting
beginnings.
fresh.
So that's why I'm like, oh my
Those
God, I
are
have never
incredible.
Never
Those
in
are
my life.
incredible.
have I pulled all of these in a row. And I use the deck all the time, shuffle it. I shuffled it a ton of times already before I pulled. This is
10 major arcana. That is unbelievable.
a full cycle. of growth, ascension, change, shift. And now we're stepping into a new cycle, literally a new timeline.
Yes. Yes. I
All
love
I gotta
it.
say about that.
Bam. Mic
Bam.
drop.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah. Oof.
And it's just
Powerful.
like, yeah. I don't think people realize how difficult it would be to actually just randomly do that
Oh,
and have those come out, like never ever. So that's
no.
massive. Like that is,
Yeah.
I'm like integrating that right now. I'm
Mhm.
letting that.
Yeah. There's 78 cards in a tarot deck. So to pull 11 cards, new beginnings of specificity, and 10 of those being a journey through the major arcana, like, I don't know if that will ever happen again in my entire life.
No.
Statistically speaking. I mean, if spirit wants to pop those cards out, they will. But
Wow.
that's probably the most epic card pull ever.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. All relating to
Show
what we're
everyone
talking about.
that's watching the front of that tarot deck, because all three of us have that. It's one of the best. The
It's
light.
my fave.
Yeah.
It's definitely amazing.
Thank you, G.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. They were just so loud. They're just like, pull now.
Right.
Okay.
No.
I
I love
will.
it. I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up, in the sense
Yeah.
that, like,
Mhm.
here's the information. You're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, keep going, but aligning. Like, I love that the Empress and the High Priestess is there, because when we talk about like receiving Gaia energy and the energy of like you're knowing your connection to the elements and to yourself, and then also then spirit connection, like as below, as above, and below, and so it is, kind of thing, like taking all aspects to integrate into self, and like all these validators. So it's that opportunity in all of those cards and everything we said, to be able to then therefore and go creating what you want.
Yep.
Ask for what you want. And the greatest way to step into that is using the verbal affirmations as if you are in it.
Yeah.
Not continually saying, I want, I wish, I hope. I am in my highest frequency. Therefore, I do see that highest frequency play out in my marriage, in my position. I continue to bring forward the people who light my way in this. I call forward this frequency connection in friendships, and like continually speak it as if every day you wake up and you're seeing the things that align with the frequency that you are in.
Yep.
So like that constant validator of what you see is the reflection of where you're at. Not changing all that stuff so that you are here. It's you are here, and therefore you see because of where you're at.
Yeah.
You're the driver of your own car. You're the author of your own book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amazing. Okay. Well, that's a wrap, I would say. Okay.
Hey, like we got to leave this feeling like $1,000,000. Hey,
Definitely.
like, go get them today, ladies.
Seriously.
Just like rock this.
Totally.
Don't you feel like just like you're on fire now? Like you have all this power, and you can just like go do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. I'm going to go try levitating.
Yes.
Might not work, but I'm going to try it. No, not yet. Not yet.
I love how I can levitate. I love how levitation comes.
You got to say it like it's happening.
Yeah, right? As I'm falling down the stairs because I thought it would happen.
Hey, Trev, watch me levitate.
Okay, catch me.
We're going to the hospital.
Me. Yeah, right.
We're going to levitate you to the hospital now.
Oh, man. All right. Okay, ladies.
I love you, ladies, so, so, so much. Thank you for sharing this beautiful connection and conversation.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. We will see you all next week. Enjoy the high vibes and have a good weekend.